Chapter 7, Intelligence and Violence. Back in Detroit, I moved back in with my mom in Ferndale. I was 17. I promised to get a job and I did. She was cool with me staying there for now. She knew that I was at least trying to get my shit together. I got a job as a telemarketer. It was some bullshit lie where I'd say I was from a Vietnam or a firefighters association and try to get people to donate money to this fake ass cause. At least if I had a job, my mom would let me live at home, so I was cool with it. The whole setup was illegal. It was run by these two evil young businessmen. They rented the top floor of this big ass office building, which they used as their main base of operation. The whole floor was made up of tiny cubicles full of working kids like me. Kids who were willing to lie and bullshit just to make old people contribute some money. That's all they had working for them was stupid young kids. When I look at that business now, it's incredible to me what they were willing to pull off. One day at work, I made a call from my list and I started talking to this one girl. Sick of giving the same pitch all the time, I just said fuck it. I told her, hey, listen, I'm supposed to tell you that I'm a Vietnam veteran and all this other bullshit, but fuck all that. If you don't mind, let's just kick it. You sound about the same age as I am, so what's up? The chick was cool as hell. We started kicking it every day. Next thing I know, I was going out with the chick. Her name was Missy Orlando. She lived way the fuck out in this city called Milford. Her neighborhood was made up of all doctors and richies and shit. So to her, as far as she knew, my friends and I were some straight up ghetto thug from the slums of hell. We loved their perception of us. We played it off to her and her friends to the fullest. See, out in the suburbs like Milford, the inner city posse were these feared gangsters. You best believe we put on the whole charade when we went out there. Weapons, knives, whatever we had, we brought it out there straight up. We lived it up for cheesy. This girl named Lisa, who was a friend of Missy's, threw the first and last party we ever went to out there. Now she was in love with this kid named Paul. Paul was fucking her friend in another room of her own house, so she just went batty and started breaking dishes and shit. That was all we needed. We said hell yeah. We started breaking them too. The girl finally passed out, but we were just getting started. We punched holes in the walls, all the walls. I found a BB gun and shot her Nintendo up. Her brother had an autographed picture of the Three Stooges. Think about that. Think of how much money that's gotta be worth. The Three fucking Stooges, they're like from 1850, and yet he had an autographed picture of them. We ripped it in half. God only knows why we did all this. I even shot it up with the fucking BB gun. I fucking loved the fucking Three Stooges too, but I was a reckless gangster. This girl was crazy. Before she passed out, she was fucking her own house up. She was running around butt naked, high and gone off whatever, and just fucking shit up. So we just started joining in. It was crazy. She didn't even care. We were just fucking her house up, and she was just crying and bawling about Paul fucking her friend. The whole time Paul kept fucking her friend, by the way. We were just smashing shit. Then the girl just passed the fuck out. Finally, she woke back up and started drinking some more. She got super fucking stupid uber drunk and started walking around the house butt naked saying,
please, please, somebody fuck me.
None of us would though. She was too out of it. We just kept breaking shit. I'm telling you. Mirrors, windows, little glass collectibles, everything you could ever imagine. Then we left back to Detroit. Weeks later, we heard that our destruction had cost the girl her freedom. She wound up going to a juvie hall and then to an insane asylum place. We hated rich people anyway. Another night, I was supposed to go out there to a high school dance with Missy, the girl I'd met on the phone. She called and told me she wasn't going though, and that she was just gonna stay home instead. I knew she was lying, so we rolled out to the dance. Sure enough, there she was, all up on some Richie kid. They were slow dancing and all in love. I was on it though. I walked right out to the dance floor and iced that kid's jaw. I even picked him back up off the floor and checked his chin 3 or 4 more times. Then my boys applied the boots to his ass and we left. The cool thing was the whole school stood around and watched us do it. And not one kid or teacher tried to stop us. We were just too scary for all their Richie asses. I was pissed. I was hurt. Young love gone wrong. Plus I had my gangster image to uphold. So I started calling her up and threatening her from my telemarketing job. She'd answer and I'd be like, "Fuck you, bitch. I'm gonna kill you." I didn't think much of it. After all, we were just these feared gangsters. What'd she expect? It all caught up with me one night when Joey, John, and I were stealing car stereos. See, by now, even I was stealing car stereos. It was so easy, even I was down. Anyway, we'd spread out around the neighborhood. I saw this lady get out of her car and go into a house. I ran up, and sure enough, she left the car unlocked. I hopped in and started pulling her car radio out. Not 1 minute later, she came back out and opened a side door. She looked right at me, screamed, and ran back into the house. I thought, oh shit, it'll at least take 5 minutes for the cops to get here though, so I might as well finish. God, I was so fucking stupid. Within minutes, I saw the cop lights down the street. I was wearing a tracksuit at the time, so my smooth tactic was to pretend like I was jogging. I ran by the squad car to see who they'd picked up, and of course, it was Joey and John. Then the cop looked right at me like, "Where the fuck you going?" "Jogging, officer," I said. So fucking stupid. I even motioned past the car while I ran in place like I had a cooler full of Gatorade I had to get to or some shit. "Sure you wouldn't like to ride in the car with the rest of your boys?" he asked. "I don't know them, officer," I yelled. "Get the fuck over here," he yelled. See, that's how fucking stupid I was. I ran from the car I was stealing a car stereo from, and then I saw cop lights down the street. So I was so fucking dumb, I figured I'd pretend like I was a jogger, and I would go jogging by him. It was like 2 in the morning, but I'm out here just jogging, minding my own business, because I wanted to see who the cops had picked up. And sure enough, it was my boys. Next thing you know, it was me too. That just goes to show you how dumb my fucking young brain was. When we got to the station, John and Joey were too young to be held, so they got out with the quickness, but I got booked. Turns out I had a warrant for my arrest. All those threatening phone calls I had made to Missy in Milford. I had a lousy $100 bond, but I sat there for a week because nobody had any money. Brother, I learned the hard way. It's a lot easier to be a gangster hard-ass in Milford than in the Oakland County Jail. I got the shit beat out of me in the bullpen right away. I was wearing my Sergio Valente tracksuit, and this big black guy came up to me. "Give me your jacket." "Where are you gonna go with my jacket?" "I don't think we're getting out of here anytime soon." Boom! Wrong answer. He beat the shit out of me. My big mouth had gotten me into trouble again, and it wasn't about to stop. The next week, I went before the judge. "Did you threaten to kill this young lady?" he asked. "Damn right," I said. "I was gonna kill her. Fuck that bitch." Bam! Right back to jail again. This time I sat for 2 weeks on a lousy $200 bond that nobody came to pay. My mom damn sure didn't have it, and she was trying to teach me a lesson anyway. This time it wasn't the bullpen. After about 4 days, they sent me upstairs to the real jail, which, by the way, was much easier than the bullpen, but it still fucking sucked. I remember that first night, hearing the doors shutting one by one on the floor above me. It was the most horrific sound I'd ever heard. Shh-chong, shh-chong. The cell doors just shutting. We were fed at 4 in the morning. I woke up to the commotion of everybody eating and drinking, but my plate was already empty. I turned to my cellmate and said, "Somebody stole my food." I quickly realized that since we were locked all night in a cell together, I was basically saying, "Motherfucker, you stole my food." "Your food's right here," he said, and bam! He hit the shit out of me in the chest. That was twice, only that wasn't as bad as the beating I got in the bullpen for my fresh Sergio Valente jacket. After 2 weeks like that, I got out. I wound up getting probation with the stipulation that I never go back to the city of Milford. So what was the first thing I did when I got out? I went straight to Milford. I didn't even really know what probation or a restraining order was. I was only 17, and this was really the first time I was ever caught up with the law. I just didn't get it. I saw Missy's car in a Kmart parking lot, and I waited for her and her new boyfriend to come out. The only blue light special I got that day was the one on top of the cop car that brought me right the fuck back to OCJ, Oakland County Jail. This time, I got 90 days and spent Christmas and New Year's Day in jail, and everything. It sucked. It was worse than the trailer park in North Carolina, worse than sleeping on the side of the highway, worse than growing up as a scrub. Over those 3 months, that's when everything for me changed. The only ones who came to visit me in jail were my mom and Joey. Nobody else. No Nate, no John, no Lacey, no fucking buddy. They all had jobs and shit going on anyway. I was still playing gangster and doing time over it. Believe it or not, I mostly passed the time by writing raps. I hadn't written any in so long I just said fuck it and started writing them to pass the time. That was the last of the gangbanging days for me. I'd been in the thuggery shit for 3 years. I wasn't lucky like Joey and Nate. I was getting caught and they weren't. I was just a 17-year-old kid with nothing better to do but break laws and try to break jaws. After that short stretch in jail, I was like, fuck all that. My mom knew I was serious about getting my shit together, so she let me stay with her at her house once again. I was making my rounds and visiting what homies and people I knew. Rudy knew I didn't have shit going on when I got out, so he called me one day. Hey Joe, I got my own wrestling thing going on. I'm passing out flyers and I'm helping promote for this wrestler dude named Malcolm Monroe. You gotta come down to the wrestling show and wrestle. This guy Malcolm wants us. It's gonna be the shit. Now later, when Joey and I started doing rap, it wasn't like Rudy could hand us money to pour into it, cause any job Rudy had, he had to take care of his kids. The wrestling thing was our thing going way back to our days downtown, going to visit Al Costello, the fabulous kangaroo. So to involve me in his wrestling promotion, that was his way of contributing. I told Rudy, hell yeah, I'd do the show. We spent the next month walking up and down West Runner Ave in Southwest Detroit, hanging and passing out flyers for Malcolm's big wrestling show, and working out in Joey's mom's garage to get in shape. The night of the show, Rudy introduced me to the promoter, Sweet Daddy Malcolm Monroe. That was his wrestling name. And today I'm good friends with his son, Malcolm Monroe Jr. Malcolm, hey, this is Joe Bruce, who also trained with me down at the Chris Adams Wrestling School of Texas. That was, by the way, a straight up lie. That was our lie we told Malcolm so that he'd let us wrestle. That we wrestled at the famous Chris Adams Wrestling School in Texas. That we were trained professionally. Truth was, we trained ourselves in Joey and Lacey's backyards. We knew how to wrestle though, and we thought the promoter would just put us against each other. We had our own little routines and moves down. It seemed perfect. It seemed. We soon found out being a local promoter, he was a businessman and a snaky one. He didn't care where we said we trained. He just wanted to make sure Rudy and I put the flyers out and collected the ticket money. Turned out he didn't even want us to wrestle. Then 3 of the scheduled wrestlers luckily didn't show up. Boom! Malcolm had no choice but to put Rudy and I on the card. My first real wrestling match ever. Next thing you know, we were in the dressing room with the original Bobo Brazil, God rest his soul, and the original Sheik, God rest his soul. Both of them were older than dirt. No lie, y'all. The Sheik looked a little better than Bobo, but both needed not to be there. Both could barely walk. They were both so broke they had no choice but to come wrestle for the $300 Malcolm was paying them. That, and of course the fact that once you get in, you just can't stop wrestling. You just want to get back in that ring. That was especially for them. The Sheik and Bobo Brazil used to sell out Cobo Arena in downtown Detroit week after week back in the 70s and early 80s. Brother, they had one of the all-time greatest feuds in all of pro wrestling history. Neither the Sheik or Bobo, I think, ever wanted to just let that go. Even if it meant coming back to fight each other one last time in front of only 150 people at a Mexican lunch hall called Azteca Hall. Those guys were straight up legends. The legends El Costello told us stories about. When I tell people my first wrestling match, the main event on that show was the Sheik vs. Bobo Brazil, they think I'm talking about the old Kobo days in the early 80s, because that was their heyday. Little do they know I'm talking about around 1990 at the Azteca Hall in Southwest Detroit. The Sheik and Bobo were so fucking old. Bobo Brazil actually had two ninjas, one on each arm, walking him down to the ring because he couldn't actually walk by himself without a cane or a walker or something. Can you believe this man was actually wrestling in a ring when he couldn't even actually walk? He just had them walk him down to the ring, and then when he got in the ring, he held himself up in the corner by the ropes, and he just stayed in that corner. The Sheik came over, and Bobo would give him a little punch, and the Sheik would sell it for like 2 or 3 minutes, then come back over, and Bobo would give him another little punch, and the Sheik would sell that for another 2 or 3 minutes. Nevertheless, it was actually the original Sheik versus Bobo Brazil. And for you wrestling nerds out there, I'm not talking about the Iron Sheik. I'm talking about the original Sheik. Bobo and Sheik used to sell out Kobo Arena week after week. And here they were at Azteca Hall in front of 150 people. These guys were legends. When we saw them in the dressing room, I turned to Rudy and said, holy shit, there they are, sitting right there. Rudy was just as geeked as me. Mexican lunch hall or not, that was the fucking Sheik and Bobo Brazil about to get it on one last time. And me and Rudy were booked on the same show. I have been to thousands of local independent wrestling shows in Michigan, and I had a sense enough to know that 90% of the rest of the dressing room consisted of nothing but bums. Old-ass ninjas who never went anywhere in wrestling. Other than a few good faces, we were the two only other young guys sitting there. It was basically garbage. Back in those days, independent wrestling shows were full of old, fat, wrestling nobodies. There was no young kids on the show. When I started out wrestling, me, Joey, and Rudy were the only young ninjas in the wrestling room. Today, at independent wrestling shows, it's all young ninjas. It's all fucking underwear models. Young ninjas doing fucking backflips off the top rope, flipping and flying everywhere. It was nothing like that when we started out in wrestling. It was all old ninjas with holes in their spandex and dirty, tired-ass fucking scuffed-up wrestling boots. We were the only young ninjas there. There were two other young guys sitting in the dressing room, though, and within minutes, we were all sitting in the corner talking with each other. One of the kids' names was Rob Van Dam. The other was Sabu. This night was also Rob Van Dam's very first match ever. Only he wasn't nervous at all. He couldn't be. I don't think he was allowed to be, because he was trained by the original Sheik, and the Sheik was watching him. You see, the Sheik had trained both Rob Van Dam and Sabu. Sabu was actually the Sheik's nephew, and Sabu had been wrestling for a few years at this point. When the Sheik wasn't eyeballing his students, they were both laid back and cool as fuck. Just the fact that the Sheik had trained Rob and Sabu made Rudy and I hop right on their nuts. They were cool as hell. That night I wrestled as Corporal Daryl Daniels to show my support for the troops in Desert Storm. The truth was, I didn't have any other wrestling gear. My brother had sent me some of his army fatigues, so I had the boots and the camouflage pants and everything. Even though I was still a skinny kid with a fresh-ass mullet who weighed about $120, I marched right out to the ring and yelled, "Salute the Corporal for Desert Storm!" I'd sold the hell out of it. Turns out I was wrestling a guy named Irish Mickey Doyle, who was an old veteran. He was one of the only wrestlers besides the Sheik and Bobo who I had any respect for. I had been a fan of his for years, watching him on all the local wrestling shows around town. Mickey Doyle could actually wrestle. Mickey was cool as hell. At least he could actually move. He was fast and athletic as hell. When we squared off, he recognized right away, "Aren't you that kid who got my autograph a bunch of times?" Yeah, I answered. My mouth was dry from being so fucking nervous. Mickey was cool though. "Get something on me, kid, do something," he said, but I wouldn't hit him. He'd throw me into the ropes and whisper, "Reverse it," but I wouldn't. I'd just go into the ropes and he'd close my knee, you know? I was scared to hit him back. "Get some heat, kid," he kept telling me, but I was too scared. He wanted me to have a comeback and start beating him around, at least to make the match a little less stale and one-sided, but I was just too nervous. I made up for it by taking good bumps. Take a bump in wrestling speak means flipping and flying around dramatically, yet believably, when you're getting your ass beat. For example, if somebody clotheslines you, you do a flip and make it look like it really hurt bad. I did that shit great. I did great bumps. I could make any jobber look great. Trouble was, that's all I could do. The truth was, having not really attended the Chris Adams wrestling school, I didn't really know how to do any technical shit. So when he said reverse it, I wouldn't do anything. So he just beat the shit out of me and that was that. The match afterwards, he rushed up to me in the dressing room. "Good match, kid, but you didn't get nothing in, man." "I can't hear," I said. "I have a hearing problem. I couldn't hear you telling me what to do." Such a stale lie. You know what though? I'll carry that lie with me for the rest of my life. In the summer of 2000, when we booked Mickey Doyle for a JCW match, that's our own wrestling league, which you'll hear about later, Mickey was like, "How's your hearing?" I had to fucking lie to answer. "Oh," I said, "it's still really fucked up." Mickey knew I was fucking lying. But it was such a stale lie. It's all I could think of. And the truth is, today, now I actually have lost 30% of my hearing after 24 years of doing shows. So now if I tell them my hearing's fucked, I'm actually telling them the truth. But back then, it was just a stale fucking lie I thought up on the spot to make up for the fact that I really didn't know what the fuck I was doing in the ring, so I couldn't follow his instructions. So that was the lie I carried. I couldn't hear. I thought I sucked in the match. But Al Snow, who today is a very famous wrestler and has worked in all the big promotions, came up to me afterwards and wanted to book me for 2 more shows that he was putting on in Ohio. I was so fucking happy. I was proud of myself for the first time in a while. Al Snow also booked Rob Van Dam and Sabu as well. My mind was switching over once again from gangster thug back to wrestling, just like in middle school. Now I was a wrestler, and that's all that mattered to be wrestling. That's all I wanted to be in my life was a wrestler. I started hanging out with Rob Van Dam as much as I could, but it was hard because he lived in Battle Creek, Michigan, and that was far as fuck. I would head out there and train with him in his barn as much as possible. I started to send out these little promo packages to all the independent wrestling promoters in the country. I told them all I could wrestle for free, but nobody booked me. But I was getting a lot of local bookings in Michigan and Ohio. I even did a 2-ring battle royal in Lima, Ohio, and that shit was fun as hell. Think about how fresh that was. I was actually in a 2-ring battle royal where everybody gets in the first ring and throws each other out. Then you go in the second ring and then you got to get thrown out of that. I stayed in that battle royal as long as I could because I just wanted to keep wrestling all those ninjas. It was so fresh. I wasn't making a single tiny fucking piece of a penny though. The independent wrestling world was nothing like I had expected. I ran into it full steam ahead and it was a big fat giant fucking letdown. God, I remember those days all too clearly. All them years of backyard wrestling, I dreamed about how wonderful it was gonna be once I was old enough to do it for real. It was all just a big fucking letdown. First of all, every wrestler was dirt fucking poor. Nobody had any money at all. They all had day jobs. They were all fucking sloppy and out of shape, and most of all, they were all dicks to me. Yes, I was green, inexperienced, small, and I sucked. Looking back at it now though, I have to wonder, who the hell were those guys to fuck with me? This wasn't the WWF or WCW or WWE. This was independent wrestling. These guys never made it. At least least I was just a kid, 18, maybe 19, that's it. These fucking bums were all pushing 40, and not one of them was successful in wrestling. They all missed the boat. At least I was on my way up. I was paying my dues. These were fucking jobbers. They all sucked in wrestling, and they were all wrestling in high school gyms and VFW halls for the rest of their lives. At least I still had a chance to make it. I think now that the only reason they were all dicks to me is because I was the only one in that dressing room who had a chance at the big time. Just like with Rob Van Dam, he was hated backstage too. Not Sabu though, just being the nephew of the Sheik, and not to mention his talent, made Sabu respected as fuck. All the rest of the dressing room, man, what a bunch of assholes they were. Even Joey wouldn't come hang out backstage with me. He hated the atmosphere of it all. He would rather watch it from the stands. I hated it backstage too. All them shitty nobodies dissing me all the time, fucking with me, made me feel like high school. I'm gonna be honest with you all. I started to lose interest in wrestling as quick as I gained it. I didn't have the heart to take all the BS like Rob Van Dam did. I would just get too pissed off, while he had the ability to just say fuck it and always blow it off. What the fuck, I was lost. Wrestling is what I always told everybody I wanted to do, but now I was questioning myself. But then again, most people question themselves at that age, right? Back on the streets, I was really starting to get into rap music again. I was trying my hardest not to end up back in jail, but I still loved to rap about thugging. When I was in jail, I had actually written my first rap in about 5 years since the JJ Boys. I called it Something to Say. It was a big rip-off from our local hero, Awesome Dre Style, but I didn't care. I just wrote it to show my boys. John had recently gotten a job at Primo's, a pizza place. He was always telling us about this kid he knew who rapped super fresh. I told John that my rap, Something to Say, schooled anybody's shit, but I was just bullshitting. My shit was weak, and I knew it. Besides, I still thought I wanted to be a wrestler my whole life. One day I went up to see John at work, and I met the rapper kid face to face. He was pretty cool. His name was Dale, but his rat name was D Lyrical. Everybody was outside smoking on their break because business was so dead, and John had told Dale to rap for me. Everybody stood around and Dale rapped his ass off. He was fresh, but his raps were all positive and educational type shit. I hated that style. I always loved the gangster shit, you know, that fuck this and bitch that style. Then John told me to bust something to say for everybody. I was nervous as hell, but I wasn't much of a rapper at all yet. But so what? I did it anyway. I busted my rap because I really didn't care what they thought. My rap was full of cussing and violence and all kinds of gangster shit. Much to my surprise, everybody standing around loved it. They all told me it was the shit. I'm not talking about just John and Joey. I mean all the ninjas who worked at Primo's, who I didn't even know. They all liked my rap. I felt super good about it after that. I started to take my rapping a little bit more seriously. When I wasn't on some long ass drive out to Buttwhiff, Indiana to wrestle, or working at some bootleg ass job, I was writing more and more raps. I really liked rapping. It kept me in the house. It gave me something to do. I really wanted to hear how I sounded, and also to send my brother a tape of me rapping, who was in the army and by now was in Desert Storm. So check out this method I used to record myself. I took 2 tape players and turned them to face each other. I hit record on one of them and play on the other, and as one tape player played the beat, an instrumental of some song, I stuck my head between both radios and rapped. The recording tape player caught both the beat coming out of the other radio and my voice rapping. I did a whole album like that. I used rap instrumentals from the Ghetto Boys, Kwame, Third Base, Compton's Most Wanted, the Lifers Group, and anybody else who put out an instrumental version on the B-side of their cassette singles. Now I had my own album on cassette. It was absolutely horrible sounding. I called it Enter the Ghetto Zone. I rapped as Violent J, my street name in Inner City Posse. Man, I made as many dubs of that piece of shit album as possible. I sent 5 copies to my brother who was in Desert Storm and had all his buddies, so so I wanted him to pass it out. I think he had other things on his mind at that time though. Rob was sitting with the other 65,000 troops in Saudi Arabia ready for war. When Desert Shield went down, I tried my hardest to get in the army, but no chance. My crime record was too fat. They wouldn't even let me peel potatoes. To me, my brother was and still is everything I always wished I could have ever been. So I just continued on wrestling on stale independent shows and writing my shitty raps and working shitty jobs. I'm gonna list just some of the different jobs I had from 14 until 19 years old. I had some of these jobs before jail and some after jail. In fact, I worked stupid jobs on and off all the way until the release of Beverly Hills 50187. We'll get to that later. In this book, I haven't really mentioned the many places I've worked at yet, mostly because none of these places ever meant anything to me. Just to clear it up, here are some of the places I've worked at throughout my life. McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, Myers, Foodland, a record store, Frank's Nursery and Crafts, Papa John's Pizza, a hardware store, Target, Benny Bread Company, a bowling alley, Joe Louis Arena, an army surplus store, and a video store. Some of the jobs I had done included dishwashing at 3 different places, caddying, landscaping, being a security guard, window selling, door to door, which by the way I never sold one fucking window, box folding, being a busboy, auto parts delivering, pizza delivering at 2 different places, being a gas station attendant, pizza cooking, car washing at 3 different places, moving, ushering, being a janitor, paper delivering, that's paper route, y'all, vacuum repairing, as if I knew a fucking thing about vacuums, telemarketing, bar bouncing, candy selling, high-low driving, I even had a high-low license, being a shipping clerk, thieving, and of course, pot slanging. Yes, I even sold pot. My interest in rapping was growing because everyone at least acted like they dug my shitty album. Even John and Joey said they wanted to make one with me, so we did. We rapped basically the same shitty way, and we made another stale album of music you could barely make out. The album was called Ghetto Territory. Man, we fucking suck. We'd run up to Kinko's and make copies of that cassette cover, which was usually a drawing of ICP written on a brick wall or something, and we'd start dubbing right away. Then one day John came home from work and dropped a bomb on us. He told us that D-Lyrical kid had just gotten a karaoke machine. John explained how it worked. One tape plays the music and the other cassette deck records. All you had to do was plug in a microphone and rap. Wow. Now, seeing how at this point most of us were on some type of probation and all, we definitely were not trying to fuck up. So stealing a karaoke machine was out of the question. Much to my surprise, John and Joey both didn't seem too interested in rapping with D-Lyrical. But I was. Anything to have access to that fresh-ass $200 karaoke machine. Boom, I called up Stale Ass Dale, aka D-Lyrical, and started fronting like we were old pals or something. I asked him if he was into the idea of doing a little record together or something. I knew I hated his pussy-ass rap style and that we wouldn't last more than 4 or 5 songs together, but I just wanted to hear myself on a more professional level. The karaoke machine. At that time, the karaoke machine was as professional as you could get. I started to walk over to D-Lyrical's house every day I could, and we made some songs together. We named our mini album Intelligence and Violence.
Intelligence and violence. You have dug your own grave. If you say you wanna battle, don't you know you're a trouble up the creek without a paddle? Cause I keep getting better. I'm tougher than leather. I'm rated #1 and I reign for.
All of my My rhymes were super violent, and his were intelligent, or whatever. That was Violent J. I was killing everybody all the time and everything, and D-Lyrical was the intelligent guy with the mad boring lyrics like,
no more words in a pocket dictionary.
I hated recording at Dale's house. I even didn't like him that much. Fuck, the truth is, I didn't even really know that kid at all. Every day when we were done rapping, the second my copy was dubbed, I was out of there. Every time I'd start doing my verse,
Violent J, dog boy packing a punch. Knocked out Ray on the motherfucking Brady Bunch. For no apparent reason, yo, that's my attitude. Fuck off, Golden State.
his mom would come down the stairs and make us stop.
Does it have to have that much cursing? My son's verses don't have any cursing.
She would say,
Why do you have to have that much cussing? We can hear you throughout the whole house.
that bitch. I fucking wanted to shoot them both and take that karaoke machine home. Finally, when I got my own karaoke machine, that was the end of D-Lyrical and his mom, but not the end of those tapes. If you look on the internet, you can still find the stuff I recorded with D-Lyrical, though God knows why you would want to. Besides focusing on music, I also had landed my first girlfriend, Karen. I met her at a video store where she worked. She was an assistant manager, so that meant free videos and we could raid the snacks. She was the first girlfriend I had a lot of sex with, but it was really generic sex. No doggy style, no nothing like that. Just straight up humping. That's all I knew how to do, and that's all she knew how to do. Such sweet young lust. We even humped in her video store after hours. Twice. Even cooler than the regular netting I was getting was that Karen bought me my own karaoke machine. From that point it was on. I had been sending my brother tapes in Saudi Arabia of me rapping, as well as fresh shit from other Detroit artists. Guys like Awesome Dre and Merciless Amir are long forgotten, but to me they were the shit. Karen had some money, and I fucking drained her out of every dime of it. I hate myself for it now, and I swear to God I wish I could find her for two reasons. First, to pay her back, and secondly, to fuck her again. Correctly this time. Anyway, with Karen's help and her loot, I collected any and every single bit of Detroit rap I could find. I would go from record store to record store all over the inner city and just ask for local shit. I had it all. K-Stone, AWhile, Detroit's Most Wanted, Smiley, Rap Mafia, Papa J Smooth, Chaos and Maestro, and all that fresh shit. Karen was the bomb for helping me back then. I still love her. Pretty soon, I was trying to sell my own tapes to ninjas in the streets. And at the time, I still never said that rap was what I wanted to do for a living. I was still kidding myself by saying that I was gonna wrestle forever. I just found it really cool making tapes. People would make dubs of my tapes and give them to somebody else, and on and on. People were actually digging my shit. Here's the freshest part. Rudy was selling them all over Southwest Detroit for $1 a piece, and people were actually buying my shit. John and Joey jumped right back in the game once they heard the pure, fresh quality of the karaoke machine Karen had bought me. We were getting ready to make the big record together. We'd call it Basement Cuts. We needed money to buy some fresh instrumentals to rap over. Karen and everybody else were completely tapped out. This karaoke album we were making was our passion though, so we had no choice but to resort to old school tactics. John, Joey, and I followed this pizza delivery lady because she had big ass kicker box speakers sticking out of the back of her Jeep. When she got out of her car and went up to the front door to deliver the pizza, I ran up and started yanking that kicker box from her Jeep. They were bolted in, but I yanked it back and forth, and finally they came loose. The lady came back and started screaming. I must have had extra karma since I was stealing for my music, because I got away clean and sold that kicker box to some kid for 60 smooth bucks. As you may remember me mentioning before, everybody used to make fun of me because I had a big forehead. So I wrote a song called Go Forehead, Go Forehead, Go Forehead. John made a song called Ghetto Style, and Joey made a song called Violent Crimes of the ICP. Before long, the record was done, but not every song we made was used. We set up our plan. We would see how many of these we could actually sell on the streets. At this point, like many young musicians anxious to promote themselves, we discovered that Kinko's had a color copy machine, so that meant color tape covers. Pretty soon, we had our own little dub tape and a color copy operation going. Karen would buy the blank tapes and pay for the covers. Then we'd drive out to Rudy's in her Cavalier before she had to go to work and drop off 30 cassettes. Then I'd drop Karen off at the video store and drive all the way back to Southwest, and bam, Rudy would already have 30 bucks. It sounds so fucking retarded and simple, but it was fresh as hell to us. Like it's when people open a restaurant and they put the first dollar bill they make on the wall. It was just a fucking buck. But when you're just starting out, everything you do is like a fucking event. I would try to sell tapes in Ferndale and Oak Park, but nobody really wanted to buy them. Rudy and his cousins were selling them big time in Southwest, so we called the label Rude Time Records. I started claiming Southwest as my home turf and all the raps, because that's where everybody was buying them. And that's where everybody knew the name ICP. Rudy didn't have a phone at the time, so we were putting my number down. We told my mom, if anybody calls for Rudy, say,
Can I take a message, please? He's not in right now.
we went into mass production. This meant Rudy was making his own copies at his house. I was making my own at my house, and John and Joey were making their own too. By now, we even had this kid named Fat Ronnie making his own copies. Inner City Posse's name was larger than ever. The only problem was that all the real gangsters in Southwest knew that we weren't really much of a gang. Even so, ICP was making noise, and they got jealous of it real quick. Pretty soon, Rudy's family's house in River Rouge started catching hell, with gangs driving by throwing shit. He and his girlfriend and their kid wanted to get out of there before any kind of real bullshit went down. They moved to this old-ass Polish neighborhood in Detroit called Hamtramck. They were straight, and it was back to business as usual. However, I started getting the bone again. I started catching even more hell at my mom's house from all that old HP shit coming up again. So I convinced Karen to rent us an apartment in Detroit. I wouldn't show anybody where I live because I didn't want any more dumb shit. I just wanted to rap. Oh yeah, and I was still wrestling. Everybody was making copies of the tape and selling them everywhere. We were still spray painting ICP everywhere, so the player hating started real quick. Next thing we knew, we were hearing ICP is a bunch of fucking pussies from River Rouge.
They're a bunch of fucking pussies from Southwest.
They're a bunch of fucking pussies from Oak Park.
Then we started hearing we're a bunch of fucking pussies from Clawson, from Sterling Heights, from Port Huron. Everybody started coming up with their own rumors. Our notoriety, or I should say fake notoriety, spread. People realized we weren't really a real gang, just rappers talking about being one. So everybody who had been in the ICP gang was like, fuck this, I'm out of this group. Everybody bailed on us, because if they stuck around, they got beat. Gangs were wanting to see if we were really as tough as we claimed in the music, and the truth was, we weren't. Mostly though, it was player haters saying, damn, they were making a lot of noise from these cheap ass tapes that basically sucked. Desert Storm started. Finally, my brother rode back from Saudi Arabia right before the Desert Storm war started. I got everybody bumping your shit out here, dog, he said. Plus, one of my homies owns a record store with his brother. Alex Abyss is his name. Remember Alex? He owns a record store with his brother. He'll sell your tape. You guys should take your tapes over to him on Gratiot in Roseville. Our jaws dropped. Holy shit. Somehow our shit's really gonna be in a real record store. Now, of course, we weren't making any real money at this point. All we were doing was driving around in my girlfriend's car, deeper and deeper into debt, paying for all the Color Kinko's copies. I promised her, once I make it, I'll pay you back. Once I make it. Until then, I had to try to find another job. Joey and John's mom was a hairdresser out in a suburb called Troy, so she got us jobs at a brand new Papa John's pizzeria that had just opened up out there. Joey quit the second day to go back to thieving, his preferred means of income. income whenever it was truly necessary. We were mad pissed at him because we needed the money and we had to keep right on working there. One of the things we had to do at Papa John's was take turns putting this fresh-ass pizza slice costume on and stand out front in traffic trying to get customers. It was part of the job, and it was to pay for our rap career. No matter how hard I tried, I was still a thug, even in a pizza slice costume. Every fucking day I'd be out there trying to make the best of it, waving at little kids saying, "Hey, come get some pizza." All the time, older kids would drive by and be like, "Fuck off, pizza slice." I'd be like, "Fuck you, bitch. I'll fuck your Richie ass up." I'd turn into this enraged pizza slice, chasing them through traffic. Of course, I look lame as hell picking fights as a pizza slice. But I figured if I pushed the crust part of the costume down and popped my head out of the hole, they'd see I wasn't playing. The kids would just laugh at me and take off. Then I'd have to run back and get back on my big plate, hoping that the owner of the store didn't see me. I sealed my fate as the thug-minded pizza slice when I took some rhinestones and super glued them to my teeth so it looked like I had diamonds in my grill. Now I was this pizza slice with iced out teeth running up and down Big Beaver Road picking fights. The manager, however, wasn't having it. "You gotta take those rhinestones off your teeth, son." I ain't taking nothing off my teeth. Boom. I got fired from that job right quick. Time to try to sell some tapes to this Alex guy. We took about 20 copies of Basement Cuts up to Alex at his store, Hot Hits Records, which was on Gratiot Avenue on the east side. Alex was a fucking snake right off the bat. He put the tape in.
Some of you motherfuckers know me. You say that's Joe Bruce, my neighborhood homie. Trying to come up, trying to be a rap star, but his basement tapes ain't going far. I ain't trying to...
"This is you rapping?" "Yep," I said. Hey, you know my brother Rob." Silence. "Yeah, I remember you. You're Rob's little brother." Silence. I couldn't tell if he liked it or hated it, so I flat out asked him, "Alex, can you sell these at your store?" He didn't give a fuck. He kept listening to the tape, looking at me.
Homemade motherfucking basement track. I ain't a superstar, so get the fuck off my nutsack.
Finally, he said, "Give me them. I'll sell each of them for $5. I'll take 3 and give you 2. "Okay," we said, like it wasn't anything. Really, we were like, holy shit, we're about to get $2 a pop. We were so fresh. Alex, boy, Alex could sell those things. He would push those motherfucking tapes off to anybody. Every little ass kid, anybody. "This is the dopest shit ever," he'd say. Some kid would ask, "You got that new Young MC?" "Fuck Young MC. This is the shit right here." People were buying it, his line and the tapes. A few weeks later, I got a call at my mom's.
Yo, is this ICP?
I paused for the longest and said slowly, "No, this is Rude Time Records."
Well, can I talk to ICP?
"No, they're not here," I said.
Just tell them I said they're fresh as hell.
And he hung up. I was like, whoa, some fucking fan just called. That night when I picked Karen up from work, we took a drive to Rudy's so I could do some bragging about the call. It was around Christmas, and I was working at Frank's Nursery and Crafts just for the season. To show how much love we had for each other on Christmas Eve, I went by work and fucking stole the tree, some mad ornaments and Christmas lights, and even a Santa Claus suit and everything. I put it all behind the dumpster out back. After work, I grabbed it all and we went over to Rudy's house to set up the stolen Christmas tree. I walked in the house dressed as Santa Claus and we gave Rudy's kids a fucking real Christmas. That shit felt good, y'all. That's why I say today, ICP may seem like two people on stage, but you gotta understand, from the very start, it was many more people. It was Rudy, it was my brother, it was everybody, even the stolen Santa suit. Alex's store was in Roseville, Michigan. Before we went up there, none of us had ever even heard of Roseville. Boom, we gave Alex 20 more tapes. He called us up about 4 days later. "I only got one left, I need more." We had sold 19 more tapes out of Alex's store in only 4 days because Alex was pawning them bitches off like they were the shit. 19 more people bought them. So for the first time in my life, for the first time ever, I sat down with Joey and John and we laid out our master plan. let's try to do rapping for real, y'all. Let's try to make it, I said. Right away, John wasn't having it. Do you know how many fucking rappers there are from every city? Not just 20, man. There's like 20,000 rappers. I thought about it for a minute, and the fact was he was right. When I'd hand out our basement tapes, everybody was like, oh, my cousin raps, my brother raps, my cousin's brother raps. There were rappers everywhere. When I got that call from Alex, though, I got one more tape left. Come pick up your money and drop off some more tapes. It changed my life, man. Listen, Alex has money, I continued. Let's ask Alex to be our manager. Let's try and do ICB for real. We all got jobs except Joey, of course. Let's put all our money in. Let's do it. I pitched a long-ass spiel about how I knew we could make it. John and Joey finally were down. We called Alex up and asked, when do you have a day off? We want to have a big meeting with you. He was like,
all right, whenever.
He had no idea what we were planning. Right before we left to go to Alex's house, we were over at John and Joey's house. Joey had a red marker and a napkin. What do you want to call our record company? We have to release it on something, he said. He was right. We at least knew that much. I collected all the local rappers' tapes in Detroit, and besides the rappers' names and album title, there would always be a label name too, which was always pretty stale. Like Dope MC would be on Dope MC Records, and that's lame as fuck. We wanted to sound like we had a real record label, like we had a real record deal. We started thinking about this crazy ass paperboy in Joey's neighborhood. This kid had hair like Big Bird, and he was fucking nuts, always kicking over garbage cans and crashing his bike into cars so he could roll across the hoods. So we were gonna call our label Mad Paperboy Records. The other idea we came up with was Psychopathic Records. Joey drew two logos on that napkin. One of them was this character with Big Bird hair and a stack of papers in one hand and a newspaper in the other hand. For the Psychopathic logo, Joey just drew the same character, only without the papers, and carrying a hatchet instead of the newspaper. We got over to Alex's house, which was actually Alex's mom's house, and we went down into the basement. There was no kind of room for us to sit, so I just sort of paced around while I gave him my 2-hour-long sales pitch. I was scared as fuck the whole time. To this very day, I can't recall ever wanting something so bad in my life. Alex, we want you to manage us. We want you to invest some money. We know you got some money in the bank. And we swear to God we'll sign whatever you want us to sign. We swear to God the first person we will pay back when we come out with this will be you. He was sort of stunned. I kept right on talking. Alex, you sold those fucking tapes on a shitty little Maxell cassette for $5 a pop. You sold fucking 19 of them in 4 days. Rudy sold God knows how many, 75, maybe 80 in Southwest. I sold 20 myself. Fat Ronnie sold 15. Dog, we can fucking do this. We can do a real EP at a real studio. Alex wasn't saying anything. He had both his arms on the table just listening. Joey and John were sitting at the table while I was walking around doing the whole speech. I kept on outlining our plan right there in that dinky little basement. I think we can do it for real, in a real studio. So let's do it, I said. Alex, we need $2,000. We're asking you if we can borrow $2,000. We know you run that record store with your brother, and you're the only one we know that can do it. You sold those tapes so fast. You already know the music business. You know what people want to buy. Let's start a record company together. Alex just looked at us like we were a bunch of criminals, which up to that point we sort of were. He knew what I was saying, though, was straight up from the heart. I'll do it, he said. He was down. You guys don't have to sign anything. I know you're gonna pay me back when we get the money. So boom, that night, we showed him the two ideas, and Psychopathic Records it was. I went back home to Karen. John and Joey went back home to their house. That night was the beginning of the rest of our lives. When I decided that was what I wanted to do, that was the new dawn of everything. It was never an option to fail. when we were doing the JJ voice, if you'd asked me what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, do I want to be a rapper, I'd have said no. I always said no. During Intelligence and Violence, I'd have said no. Even with Basement Cuts, there was too many other rappers out there. I want to be a wrestler is what I said. But when Alex sold all those tapes at a store for $5 to complete strangers who weren't friends of ours, and who weren't friends of Rudy's, and who weren't friends of Rudy's little brother, or friends of Fat Ronnie, just complete strangers, then when that kid called me and all that stuff together, and from that moment on, I had something. I had a purpose. I wasn't making fucking basement tapes anymore. I didn't want to be a wrestler. I didn't want to be anything. I had worked like 50 jobs and none of them worked out for me. All of a sudden, I had something to do for a living. I wanted to be a fucking rapper, and failure was not an option. Every fucking day I come out of my tour bus and some ninja's asking me questions. Did you ever think you'd make it this big? Yes, I knew we would. I knew we would the day we decided we wanted to be rappers for a living. That day changed everything in our lives. It was like the sun shined on us for the first time of our entire lives. We knew it right then and there. We didn't want to be wrestlers anymore. We didn't want to be fucking thieves, thugs, or gangsters. We wanted to be rappers, and we wanted it for real. And once we made that decision, and once Alex was on board, once Joey, John, and I were all on board, it was like fucking catching the Holy Ghost. We knew it. We wanted to be rappers. Failure was not an option. It was like our calling. It was like the key fucking finally unlocked the master bolt, and we knew what we wanted to be. Every question was finally answered. We knew what we had to do. We knew our purpose. We knew our calling. We were going to be the inner city posse for real. We're now going to take a little break in the story to cover a very important subject, known as thieving and plucking. Plucking was the main word, plucking shit. That's a fresh word for thieving too. Pluck a candy bar, pluck a pair of shoes, pluck some batteries, you know what I'm saying? Pluck some shit. 1 minute it's there in the store, next minute it's up under your coat. You plucked it. Who better to learn from the master of tactics himself, Shaggy 2 Dope. So written in his own words, in 3 different sections placed throughout the book, is his own thief tactic handbook that he likes to call the Shaggy 2 Dope Guide to Crime, Volume 1, Ninjas in Action. But, of course, this is an audio book, so here's the man himself, Shaggy Shags, the man with the extra long wang, I've been told, Shaggy 2 Dope.
Thank you, Jay, especially for the compliment on the meat piece. But I'm gonna jump right into it here. Here we go. Nathan Mack and I could never hold down jobs. It was just too whack working, you know what I'm saying? First time I ever stole, I got caught. I was at Crowley's department store and I did the oldest tactic in the book. I brought fucking 2 pairs of shorts into the dressing room and I came out with 1. For some odd fucking reason, I have no idea to this day, I had an 8-inch knife in the inside pocket of my jacket with no cover on it or nothing. So when they busted me, they found it and they were all like fearing for their lives and shit. Like I was gonna fucking stab them or something. That wasn't the case. Because I was only 14 or something, my mom had to come pick me up from jail and that was it. Nowadays, I'd have cut everybody in half. We wouldn't just steal shit to steal. Actually, we would, but mainly we'd steal shit to get paid off it. Damn, there's so many fucking tactics to stealing. That was the easiest fucking thing ever. Nobody steals books from fucking B. Dalton and places like that. The whole trick is if you get too greedy and you try to go to malls and stealing in them bookstores, you get caught every time. Mall security's too thick. If you go to the stores in the mall parking lots or the freestanding bookstores, those are the easiest fucking targets in the world. You can get paid stealing fucking books, especially if you don't like to work like I didn't, you know? It's so easy, it's impossible to get fucking caught. It's always some old fucking lady or some fucking high school kid working behind the counter or some fucking feeble ass lady who ain't gonna do shit anyways. She ain't gonna chase you. She's just gonna scream her old ass head off. The best time to do it is in the winter, cause that way you got a big ass jacket on. You go in there, you find the biggest, fattest fucking book you can. Open it up to the inside page, the last page, whatever. It's got the price in it, how much the book costs. So you look for like a $300 ninja book, one of those big fucking ninja fat ass ones. Not like this book though. Make sure it ain't a book about some stupid band or whatever, cause those books ain't worth shit. Find one of the $400 books about ancient quasars and how to defuse them or something. Wear some loose pants, stick the fat fucking book down the front of your fucking pants, and suck your stomach in as hard as you can so you can't even tell it's in there. Your shirt and jacket should go straight down over it. To hold it there, if your belt ain't doing the job, grab a handful of change and just cup your arm over and hold on to it. When you walk out, you just act like you're counting your change. When you're in the car on the way to the used bookstore to fucking sell it, you just crinkle up a couple of the pages. You know, just throw it on the floor a couple times, cause if it looks too new, they won't buy it. Truth is, they know you fucking stole it. You know, they're thinking, what the fuck is this 14-year-old thug kid doing with the fucking prehistoric equations limited edition hardcover? Even though they pretty much already know you plucked it an hour ago, you still gotta rough it up a little bit. You fucking bring a $300 book into a bookstore, you get like $50 for it, which is the shit. Yeah, they're gonna sell it for like $200, but so what? 50 bones is straight as hell. We used to get super paid off books, but then, you know, everything gets played out after a while. Boy meets girl. I'm sure this tactic is probably used by many a young thug today because it's very fucking easy and very effective. Your homie meets a girl somewhere. He gives her a fake name from the start. Now when you're younger, of course, you're not allowed over the girl's house unless her mom's gone for the night. So on a good night or a good school skipping day when her mom or dad are at work, you bring your whole fucking crew over. When you're in her bedroom fucking her or whatever, your road dogs just fucking loot the joint. Man, you just fucking take everything. Put the DVD players outside the fucking windows. You gotta keep the TVs and shit in there because she'll notice them gone right away. But the DVDs, take those, mad easy. Go into her parents' room, steal all the jewelry, fucking whatever of value. We'd even steal the shit out of their cupboards, cookies and fucking chocolate milk and shit, you know, frozen pizzas, anything. We would just strip the whole fucking house. Once you get that chick in her room, you gotta rap to her a while before you start fucking, right? At least 10 or 15 minutes, which gives your homies plenty of time to load the car full of shit, you know? Plus, sometimes the bitch would be drunk by the time she came out the room or whatever, so she wouldn't even notice anyway. This is so fresh. We were at this bitch's house pulling that tactic once and we ordered a pizza. When the guy got there, we paid for the pizza with a necklace we stole out that bitch's mom's room. Pretty fucking fresh, huh? Come on, it's that easy. And if you feel like getting some brews or whatever, it's this easy. Check it out. You walk into the store, 5 people deep, you grab some cases and you run out. It's called a case run. Make sure it's a suburban store though. Them inner city stores will bust rounds at your ass.